Close your eyes. Let the world around you fade. Take a slow, deep breath and release it gently. Now, imagine that you are no longer in your bed. The sheets beneath you feel different, thicker, heavier, with a faint smell of starch and lavender. The air against your skin is warm, but not the warmth of central heating. It is the dry, gentle warmth of a room that has been kept comfortable by fire. There is no hum of electricity here, no faint vibration of machinery, no soft glow of a digital clock, only silence, and the slow, steady tick-tock of something in the corner. Your eyelids feel heavy, but curiosity draws them open. The first thing you see is light, soft, muted, golden light. It seeps through thick curtains of deep red velvet, casting long shadows on the walls. The sunlight is not bright, but filtered, as if the world outside is wrapped in a thin veil of morning mist. You blink slowly. Your head sinks deeper into the pillow beneath you. Firm, stuffed with feathers, covered in a pillowcase embroidered with tiny flowers. Your hands brush against the quilt, and you notice how heavy it feels, how the fabric is textured, the stitching precise and deliberate. You inhale. The air carries scents that feel both foreign and strangely familiar. The faint smokiness of burnt coal, the sweet, floral trace of lavender water, and beneath it all, the earthy smell of polished wood and time-worn fabric. You lift your head and look around. The ceiling above you is high, much higher than the one in your own room. It is bordered with carved plaster patterns, tiny leaves and scrolls running along its edges. The walls are wrapped in wallpaper, deep burgundy with winding golden vines curling upward. The pattern repeats endlessly, like a dream you cannot quite place. Against one wall sits a marble fireplace. Its grate is empty now, but the air still holds the faint memory of last night's fire. Above it hangs a painting, a landscape in oils, a countryside dotted with trees and a winding river. Its frame is heavy and dark, carved with intricate designs that catch the faint morning light. On the floor, a thick wool rug spreads beneath the bed. Its patterns are rich, in colors of deep red, navy, and cream, worn soft under years of use. Near the window, a small wooden table holds a porcelain basin and a matching pitcher, both gleaming white with blue floral trim. You shift slightly, the bed springs creaking faintly beneath you. Somewhere in the room, a clock ticks on, slow, steady, patient. Each sound is distinct, as if marking the minutes of another age. You sit up slowly. The quilt slides off your shoulders and pools in your lap. The air against your skin feels warmer near the bed, cooler as you move away from it. You swing your legs to the side. Your bare feet meet the thick wool rug, soft yet firm beneath your toes. The sensation is comforting, grounding you in this unfamiliar space. The room is quiet. You hear nothing from outside, no traffic, no mechanical sounds, only the occasional pop of cooling wood in the fireplace and the constant ticking of the clock. You run your fingers along the edge of the bed frame. It is carved from dark oak, smooth and polished. Your touch lingers on the patterns, curves, leaves, and small flowers etched into the wood by a careful hand. You rise to your feet. The floor beneath the rug is solid, the faint creak of wooden boards hidden under the heavy fabric. Moving toward the table near the window, you notice the porcelain basin more clearly. The pitcher beside it holds cool water. You pour some into the basin. The sound of water pouring is soft and steady, echoing faintly in the quiet room. You dip your hands in. The chill makes you inhale sharply. You bring the water to your face. It is crisp and clean, with a faint metallic taste of old plumbing. You dry yourself on a linen towel hanging nearby. The fabric is rougher than modern cotton, but clean and smelling faintly of soap. Your gaze drifts toward the heavy velvet curtains. The sunlight beyond them is brighter now. It slips through the tiny gap between the two panels. Dust motes dance in the light, moving lazily through the air. With a gentle pull, you open the curtains. A soft morning mist hangs over the rooftops. The buildings outside are tall and narrow, their facades a mix of brick and stone. A chimney in the distance releases a thin trail of smoke into the pale sky. Somewhere far off, you hear the faint clop of hooves on cobblestone. A bell rings in the distance, its tone deep and deliberate. The sound rolls across the city, fading slowly. You place your hands on the cool window glass and take a deep breath. The air smells faintly of coal smoke, damp stone, and something sweet, perhaps bread baking far down the street. You step back from the window, the curtains falling closed behind you. The room feels warmer again, quieter, as if holding its breath. You turn away from the window and take in the room again, this time noticing details you missed before. Near the fireplace, there is a small armchair upholstered in a patterned fabric of deep green and gold. A folded blanket rests neatly over one arm. Beside it, a low table holds a single book with a worn leather cover. You pick up the book. Its pages are thick, the edges uneven. When you open it, the scent of old paper rises to meet you, dry and faintly sweet. The text is printed in small, elegant letters, the ink faded slightly with time. You cannot focus on the words just yet. The novelty of this place is too strong, pulling your attention in every direction. Placing the book back on the table, you move toward a tall wooden wardrobe in the corner. Its doors are heavy, the brass handles cool to the touch. When you open it, the faint scent of cedar and fabric fills the air. Inside, clothing hangs neatly. Dresses and coats made of thick wool and fine cotton. Shirts starched and folded on the upper shelves. A pair of polished boots sits at the bottom, their leather gleaming. You close the wardrobe slowly, the hinges giving a soft groan. The clock in the corner continues its steady rhythm. Tick-tock. Each sound feels like a heartbeat for the room itself. A faint sound comes from beyond the door. Footsteps, measured and soft. They approach, pause for a moment, then a gentle knock follows. Before you can answer, the door opens slightly. A young woman enters, wearing a black dress with a white apron and a lace cap. She holds a silver tray. On it, a porcelain teapot sends curls of steam into the air. Beside it are 2 slices of toast, lightly browned, with a small dish of butter and a jar of marmalade. She walks to the bedside table and sets the tray down. Her movements are quiet and precise. When she looks up, she gives a small, polite smile. "Good morning," she says softly. Her accent is crisp and proper. "I hope you slept well." You nod, unsure of how to answer. The reality of this moment is still sinking in. Without another word, she curtsies and leaves, closing the door with a quiet click. The room is silent again, except for the ticking clock. You walk to the table and sit on the edge of the bed. The tea is hot, the porcelain cup delicate in your hand. Its aroma is strong and earthy. You take a sip. The warmth spreads through you. For a moment, you simply sit there, cup in hand, listening to the sounds of the distant city, the clop of hooves, the call of a newsboy. The low murmur of voices carried on the morning air. You finish your tea slowly, letting each sip warm you from the inside. The toast is crisp, the butter melting into it in a way that feels simple yet perfect. The marmalade has a gentle bitterness that lingers on your tongue. You set the cup down and stand. The air in the room is still cool, especially near the window. The light outside has grown brighter, the mist beginning to lift. Somewhere far below, the sound of wheels on cobblestones becomes clearer. You move to the window once more and look down at the street. A man in a dark coat and top hat walks briskly, a leather briefcase in his hand. A woman in a wide skirt and bonnet follows, holding the hand of a young child who is skipping along the pavement. A horse-drawn carriage rolls past, the driver flicking the reins with practiced ease. You rest your hand against a glass and feel the faint vibration of the carriage wheels as they pass. A soft breeze slips in through the small gap in the window frame, carrying with it the smell of damp stone, coal smoke, and the faint sweetness of baking bread from a shop nearby. The city feels alive, not in the way you know it today, but in a slower, more deliberate rhythm. It is a world built of sound, smell, and texture. Every moment feels unhurried, as though time itself has more weight here. You step back from the window and glance around the room again. The heavy furniture, the thick curtains, the faint echo of the clocks ticking. Everything here speaks of another era. You're not dreaming. You're here. You have woken in London. The year is 1860. The quiet comfort of your room makes it tempting to stay, but curiosity stirs within you. You rise from the bed, the quilt slipping onto the chair beside it. The air feels cooler near the window, warmer near the fireplace, where the faint glow of embers still lingers. On the bedside table, the silver tray still waits. The teapot, though no longer steaming, holds enough warmth for one more cup. You pour it slowly. The sound of liquid filling the porcelain cup is soft and steady. Another sip, smooth and earthy, gives you a small moment to think about where you are. Today you will step outside into a world more than a century and a half in the past. But first, you must prepare yourself to meet the streets of London as they are in 1860. You cross to the wardrobe in the corner. Opening it feels like opening a chest of secrets. Inside, garments hang neatly in a way you rarely see in modern wardrobes. Every piece has weight and structure, no soft synthetic fabrics, no bright printed colors. Instead, there are deep tones of brown, black, navy, and cream. You reach for an outfit prepared the night before, or perhaps prepared for you by the unseen hands of this household. If you are a woman, it begins with the corset. Its fabric is stiff, lined with stays that press firmly into your waist. Lacing it requires patience, each pull drawing it tighter until your posture is straight and your breathing slightly more deliberate. The blouse is soft cotton with high puffed sleeves. The skirt is layered and heavy, brushing the tops of your boots when you move. If you are a man, the process is simpler, but no less formal. A crisp white shirt, freshly starched, slides over your shoulders. The wool waistcoat is snug, its buttons small and precise. The frock coat follows, its dark fabric smooth under your fingers. A silk cravat is folded and tied, adding a final touch of formality. Once dressed, you move to the mirror. The glass is slightly imperfect, the reflection softened at the edges. You take in your appearance, noting how different you look in these clothes, how your silhouette has changed to match the style of the era. A faint sound draws your attention, the door opening just enough for a figure to step inside. It is the young maid you saw earlier. Her posture is polite, her gaze lowered, but her presence fills the room with quiet efficiency. In her hands, she carries a small wooden stand with a basin of fresh water. She sets it near the wash table, replacing the one you used earlier. The sound of the water sloshing gently in the basin is delicate, almost soothing. "Breakfast is ready whenever you are," she says softly. Her accent is crisp, her tone respectful. You thank her with a nod. She curtsies lightly before retreating through the door, leaving behind the faint scent of soap and fresh linen. You take a moment to wash your hands and face again, letting the cool water wake you fully. The rough linen towel warms slightly in your grasp as you dry yourself. Turning toward the door, you feel a small anticipation building. You are about to see more than just the quiet safety of this room. You are about to step into a working Victorian household at the start of its day. The hallway beyond your room is dimly lit by wall-mounted lamps. The air is cooler here, carrying the faint smell of wax and polished wood. Your footsteps on the wooden floor are muffled by a long carpet runner patterned in muted reds and golds. You pass a series of closed doors, each one with a brass handle gleaming faintly in the low light. From behind one door, you hear a soft rustle of movement, perhaps another member of the household preparing for the day. From another, the faint notes of piano, the melody, simple but elegant, as if someone is practicing scales before the day's business begins. At the end of the hall, a wide staircase curves downward. The banister is smooth under your hand, worn by years of use. You descend slowly, the sounds of the house growing clearer with each step. The distant clink of china, the low murmur of voices, the faint, comforting aroma of bread and tea. You reach the ground floor and find yourself in a wide hallway that leads toward the back of the house. The floor here is tiled in black and white squares, the pattern crisp and clean. A tall coat rack stands near the door, holding heavy overcoats, umbrellas, and a few hats of various shapes. To your right, an open doorway reveals a sitting room. The morning light streams through large windows, falling across comfortable chairs and a small writing desk. The faint scent of tobacco lingers in the air, as though someone had been reading and smoking there the night before. But it is the dining room ahead that draws you. Through another open doorway, you see a long table covered in a white linen cloth. The silverware gleams in the soft light. Porcelain plates sit neatly at each place, accompanied by cups and saucers waiting to be filled. At the far end of the room, a sideboard holds a breakfast spread. There is a loaf of fresh bread, still warm enough that steam rises when it is sliced. A plate of eggs rests nearby, along with rashers of bacon and a dish of butter. Small jars of jam and marmalade catch the light, their colors rich and inviting. A pot of tea sits ready, steam curling upward from its spout. Beside it is a tall silver coffee pot, polished to a mirror finish. The maid you saw earlier is here as well, moving quietly as she sets out more food. When she notices you, she offers a polite smile and gestures toward the table. "Please sit wherever you like," she says in the same gentle tone. You choose a chair midway down the table, the wood smooth and cool beneath your hand as you pull it back. The cushion is firm but comfortable. A moment later, she pours tea into your cup. The sound is soft but clear, the steam carrying the scent of dark leaves steeped to perfection. You begin with the bread, spreading butter across its surface. It melts quickly, leaving a sheen that catches the light. The taste is simple but full, the kind of bread made to start the day with strength. After finishing your bread, you try the eggs. They are soft, lightly seasoned, and still warm from the kitchen. The bacon is crisp at the edges, releasing a rich, savory aroma as you lift it to your mouth. Between bites, you take slow sips of tea. The warmth spreads through your chest, steadying you for the day ahead. Every so often, you hear faint sounds from outside, the clop of hooves, the call of a street vendor, the creak of wooden wheels turning over uneven stone. The maid moves about the room quietly, clearing plates and replacing dishes as needed. She does not rush, and her footsteps are almost silent on the carpet. When your cup is nearly empty, she refills it without a word. You look toward the window. The mist outside is beginning to lift, revealing the shapes of rooftops and chimneys beyond the garden wall. The light has shifted from pale gray to a soft gold, and the shadows of the trees sway gently in the breeze. The meal is not hurried. There is no pressure to finish quickly, no blaring alarms or tight schedules. Time here feels like something you can hold in your hands, each moment stretching just a little longer than you expect. When you finally set down your fork and push the plate slightly away, you feel ready to see what lies beyond the walls of this house, ready to step into London as it was in 1860. You thank the maid, who nods politely in return. As you leave the dining room, the sounds of the household fade behind you. The front door stands ahead, its brass handle gleaming in the morning light. Your hand rests on it for a moment, feeling the cool metal beneath your palm. With a deep breath, you open the door to the waiting world. The brass handle is cool beneath your palm. You turn it slowly, and the heavy front door swings open with a low creak. A rush of cool air greets you, carrying with it the layered scents of the city, damp stone, faint coal smoke, and something sweet that might be fresh bread from a nearby bakery. You step outside. The ground beneath your feet is uneven cobblestone, still darkened from the night's rain. Small puddles shimmer in the early light, reflecting fragments of the buildings and sky above. The air feels crisp, yet soft on your skin. There is a mist that clings to the edges of the street, curling around the base of lampposts and creeping into the narrow spaces between buildings. Overhead, the pale gold of the morning sun begins to push against the gray, sending shafts of light across rooftops to chimneys. You pause for a moment on the front step, simply listening. The rhythmic clop of a horse hooves approaches from somewhere beyond the bend. A faint rattle of wooden wheels follows, punctuated by the occasional squeak of a loose axle. From the far end of the street, a newsboy calls out. His voice rises and falls with practiced rhythm, each headline shouted with emphasis. The words are hard to make out at this distance, but the energy in his voice carries clearly through the air. A man in a dark wool coat passes you, his gloved hands tucked into his pockets. He nods politely without breaking stride. The brim of his top hat catches the morning light for a moment before he disappears down the street. Behind him, a woman in a long, layered dress walks carefully to avoid the puddles. She holds a small parasol, though the sun is still weak. The faint rustle of her skirts is almost lost beneath the sound of hooves and wheels. You step down from the stone steps and onto the street. The sound of your boots on the wet cobblestones blends with the rhythm of the city. Each step makes a soft splash in the shallow puddles that gather where the stones dip. A carriage turns the corner ahead. Its driver, dressed in a heavy coat and scarf, guides two chestnut horses with steady hands. The wheels clatter over the stones, sending up a fine spray of water from the wet road. As the carriage passes, you hear the muffled voices of passengers inside, though the words are lost in the noise of the street. The row of buildings along this street is close together, each one narrow but tall. Brick facades in shades of brown and red stand shoulder to shoulder, their windows framed in white. Iron railings line the steps leading up to the front doors, the paint worn smooth by years of use. From one open doorway comes the smell of baking bread. The scent is warm and comforting, carrying across the street like an unspoken invitation. Through the shop window, you can see golden loaves stacked neatly, their crusts glistening slightly as if brushed with butter. A baker in a white apron moves between the oven and the counter, his hands dusted with flour. Farther along, a woman arranges hats in the display of a small shop. Wide-brimmed bonnets, decorated with ribbons and feathers, sit on wooden stands. She adjusts each one with care, stepping back to judge the arrangement before making small, precise changes. A street organ begins to play somewhere nearby. The melody is a slow waltz, a little uneven, as if the machine has been in service for many years. The tune floats above the sounds of the street, weaving in and out of the clatter of wheels and the chatter of voices. You continue walking at an unhurried pace, letting the street unfold around you. Everywhere you look, there is movement, but it is a measured kind of movement, deliberate, steady, and unhurried. On the opposite side of the road, a boy in short trousers and a flat cap weaves between pedestrians carrying a bundle of newspapers under one arm. He calls out headlines with practiced clarity, pausing only to hand a paper to a man who presses a coin into his palm. A group of laborers passes by, their boots worn and their coats heavy with the morning damp. One carries a sack over his shoulder, the coarse fabric darkened where it has absorbed the mist. They speak in low voices, their accents thick, exchanging short bursts of conversation between steps. The scent of the air changes as you move forward. Coal smoke becomes stronger here, mixing with the faint tang of metal and oil. You soon see the source, a blacksmith's workshop, its wide doors opened to the street. Inside, a man stands over an anvil, his sleeves rolled to the elbow. The steady rhythm of his hammer striking hot metal rings out into the street, sharp and clear against the deeper sounds around it. Sparks leap into the air with each strike before vanishing into the shadows. Just beyond the smithy, a cart piled high with vegetables waits at the corner. The vendor, an older woman in a shawl, arranges carrots and turnips into neat rows, pausing now and then to greet a passerby. Her voice is warm, her tone familiar, as though every customer is an old friend. From somewhere nearby comes the sharp whistle of a constable. You glance toward the sound and see a man in a dark blue uniform directing a carriage away from a narrow side street. His presence is calm but firm, and the driver obeys without hesitation. The rhythm of the city feels alive now, layered and constant, each sound and scent adding to the whole. You slow your pace as the street widens into a small square. The cobblestones here are lighter in color, worn smooth by years of traffic. In the center stands a tall cast-iron lamppost. Its glass lantern is unlit now, but you can imagine it glowing softly in the evening mist. Around the edges of the square, shopkeepers are beginning to arrange their displays. A bookseller sets out wooden crates filled with second-hand volumes, their spines faded from sun and age. The scent of old paper mixes with the sharper aroma of leather bindings. Nearby, a flower seller arranges bunches of blooms into a neat display. Bright yellow daffodils, deep red roses, and pale lilies stand in small tin buckets, their colors vivid against the gray stone. The air around her stall carries a light, sweet fragrance that cuts through the heavier scent of coal smoke. A young couple walks past, speaking in low voices. The woman's gloved hand rests lightly on the man's arm. They pause at the flower stall, and after a brief exchange, he buys her a single rose. She accepts it with a small smile before they continue on their way. You stand for a moment, taking in the sights and sounds of the square, the creak of wagon wheels as they pass, the call of a street hawker advertising fresh oysters, the quiet laughter of two children chasing each other around the edge of the square. The city feels both vast and intimate, a place where the hum of daily life carries on in countless small details. You realize you could stand here for hours, simply watching, and never see the same scene twice. With the sun now higher in the sky, the mist begins to lift completely. The brick facades glow warmly in the light, and the shadows grow shorter on the stones beneath your feet. It is time to move on, deeper into the heart of London. You have walked far enough to realize that the streets of London are not just stone and brick. They are shaped by the people who move through them. Every glance, every gesture, every conversation you overhear follows a set of rules. Rules that are rarely spoken aloud, but are known instinctively by everyone who lives here. Social etiquette in 1860 is not just a matter of politeness. It is a language in itself, one you must learn quickly if you are to blend in. The first thing you notice is how people greet one another. On the street, men tip their hats slightly when passing someone they know. A small nod is given to acquaintances, while close friends might stop for a handshake. The handshake is firm, but not prolonged. The grip polite and steady. Women do not usually offer a handshake unless the acquaintance is very familiar. Instead, they might give a small bow of the head or a brief smile. When speaking to a lady, a gentleman keeps his distance, ensuring there is at least the width of an arm between them. Titles matter greatly here. When addressing someone, you must use Mr., Mrs., Miss, or a professional title such as Doctor or Reverend. Using only a first name is reserved for close friends and family. Failing to use a title can be taken as a sign of disrespect. Dress is not merely about fashion. It communicates your position in society. A man's suit should be clean and well-pressed, his boots polished, and his cravat neatly tied. For women, dresses must be modest in cut, with sleeves and hems of appropriate length. Even fabric speaks volumes. Fine silk or wool suggests wealth, while coarser materials signal more modest means. As you observe, you begin to understand that conversation here is also a careful dance. Topics such as politics, religion, or money are rarely discussed in casual company. Safe subjects include the weather, literature, music, recent public events. It is better to ask questions than to speak at length about yourself. Listening attentively is seen as a mark of good breeding. It is customary to accept, even if you do not intend to drink much of it. Refusing refreshment can be interpreted as a lack of warmth or unwillingness to engage. When your cup is placed before you, wait until everyone has been served before taking a sip. In the parlor or drawing room, seating is not taken at random. The host or hostess may gesture for you to sit in a particular place. If you are not directed, choose a chair that does not appear to be the most prominent. Those are often reserved for guests of special importance. Men sit with both feet flat on the floor, leaning slightly forward when engaged in conversation. Women keep their knees together and ankles crossed, hands folded lightly in their laps. Conversation here is polite, but not empty. If you are complimented, you should respond with modesty rather than pride. If someone shares a story, allow them to finish before speaking. Interruptions are rare, and when they do occur, are usually followed by an apology. At larger gatherings, such as evening receptions, introductions are made formally. If you are meeting someone of higher social standing, a mutual acquaintance will say your name first, followed by theirs. You will then exchange a bow or curtsy and a polite phrase such as, "It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance." Even in casual moments, the awareness of rank is constant. Tradesmen and domestic staff are spoken to politely but firmly, often with a slightly different tone than one would use with a social equal. In return, staff address their employers as "sir" or "ma'am," never by first name. Formal dinners are perhaps the most carefully choreographed events in Victorian society. They begin not with the serving of food, but with the procession into the dining room. Guests are often paired, a gentleman escorting a lady, and the highest-ranking guests enter first. The seating arrangement is determined in advance, with great attention paid to placing people of compatible social status and temperament near one another. When seated, you do not immediately begin eating. You wait until the host or hostess lifts their fork before you take your first bite. Table manners are exacting. Your elbows never rest on the table, your posture remains straight, and you take small, measured bites. Utensils are used with precision, the knife in the right hand, the fork in the left, and never switching hands mid-meal. Conversation at the table is light and evenly shared. It is considered impolite to dominate the discussion or to speak across the table to someone too far away. Instead, you engage with those on either side of you, turning slightly toward them as you speak. The serving of each course follows a rhythm. Soups may be followed by fish, then meat, then game, and finally dessert. Wine is poured for each course, but moderation is expected. To drink too quickly or too much is seen as a serious breach of decorum. On Sundays, the social rules extend beyond private gatherings. Attendance at church is expected not only for worship, but also as a visible statement of respectability. Families arrive dressed in their finest, men in well-brushed coats and polished boots, women in dresses with fresh gloves and bonnets. At the church entrance, polite greetings are exchanged, and seating is taken in family pews. After the service, the walk home becomes a subtle social event. Neighbors stop to chat in the churchyard, exchanging news and polite compliments. It is an opportunity to be seen and to see others in a setting where everyone shares the same formal courtesy. In public parks or gardens, etiquette dictates even more restraint. Gentlemen may offer their arm to a lady when walking along the gravel paths, but public displays of affection are frowned upon. A polite stroll, quiet conversation, and the occasional pause to admire a fountain or flower bed are the acceptable ways to pass the time. Even outside the grand homes and public spaces, etiquette shapes daily life in quieter ways. In the marketplace, for example, bargaining is done with courtesy. A gentleman might inquire about a price, but he does so without raising his voice or showing impatience. A lady may request to see a different cut of cloth or a fresher basket of apples, but she thanks the shopkeeper for the effort, whether she buys or not. Letters are another essential part of Victorian social conduct. They are written in a clear, careful hand, often with ink pens and heavy paper. Every letter begins with a formal salutation, "Dear Sir" or "Dear Madam," and ends with a proper closing such as "Yours sincerely" or "Your obedient servant," depending on the relationship. Even among friends, the tone remains polite and deliberate. Acts of charity are also governed by etiquette. If you choose to make a donation to a local cause or offer aid to someone in need, it is done quietly, without drawing public attention. The ideal is to help while preserving the dignity of the recipient. For those moving between social circles, adaptability is key. In the presence of the upper classes, you speak less and listen more. Among merchants and tradesmen, you may be warmer and more direct, but you still maintain a level of formality that would feel unusual in the modern world. Perhaps the most striking element of Victorian etiquette is the sense of distance it maintains between people. Even among friends, there is a careful respect for personal space and privacy. The rules may seem restrictive, but they also create a kind of graceful predictability, a shared understanding of how each person is expected to behave. As you walk through the streets and observe the countless small interactions, the tipped hats, the measured words, the graceful bows, you begin to realize that etiquette is not merely about manners. It is the invisible structure that holds the entire society together. The deeper you move into the city, the more you see how London works. It is not just the grand houses and polite gatherings. It is a living network of trades, skills, and labor, each piece essential to the whole. The first to catch your attention are the costermongers, street vendors selling fresh produce from hand carts. Their voices rise above the background noise as they call out their wares: ripe apples, plump cherries, fresh fish still glistening from the morning catch. They stand beside their carts, sleeves rolled up, coins jangling in their pockets as they make quick exchanges with customers. Nearby, a chimney sweep emerges from a narrow alley. His face and hands are black with soot, his cap pulled low against the morning light. The bundle of brushes and rods over his shoulder marks his trade instantly. In the distance, another sweep, this one a boy of no more than 12, hurries toward his next job, his small boots slapping against the cobblestones. At the corner, a lamplighter finishes extinguishing the last of the gas lamps from the night before. He carries a long pole with a small hook and snuffer at the end. Each movement is practiced and precise, the result of years spent walking the same route every day. You pass a print shop, its windows filled with newspapers, handbills, and illustrated broadsheets. Inside, The sharp scent of ink hangs in the air. Men in rolled shirt sleeves work over heavy presses. The rhythmic clank and hiss of the machines mix in with the low hum of conversation. Across the street, a blacksmith's forge glows like a pocket of fire in the gray morning. The hammering is steady, ringing out in sharp bursts that echo down the lane. Sparks jump and vanish in the air, and the smell of hot iron is strong and metallic. Not far away, a seamstress sits near the open doorway of her small shop, her needle flashing in the light as she works. Bolts of fabric lean against the wall beside her, their colors muted but rich. Wool in deep greens and browns, cotton in crisp whites and creams. She pauses only to greet a passing customer or to adjust the folds of a dress displayed on a mannequin. Everywhere you turn, someone is working. The city breathes through these occupations, the steady rhythm of labor giving life to every street. The smell of fresh bread draws you toward a small bakery tucked between two taller buildings. Through the open door, the warmth spills out into the street, carrying with it the scent of yeast and browned crust. Inside, the baker moves with quick, practiced motions, sliding loaves from the brick oven onto wooden paddles. His apron is dusted with flour, and a row of round buns cools on the counter beside him. Customers come and go in a steady stream, exchanging coins for warm parcels wrapped in paper. Just beyond the bakery, the familiar cry of a newsboy rings out again. This one stands at a busy corner, his voice cutting sharply through the noise of the street. He waves a folded newspaper above his head, the bold black headlines catching the light. A few men stop to buy copies, tucking them under their arms as they hurry away. Farther along, you spot a uniformed constable making his rounds. His dark blue coat is buttoned to the neck, and a polished helmet sits squarely on his head. He moves at a steady pace, his eyes scanning the street without hurry. When a cart blocks the way, he gives a short whistle and a gesture, clearing the path with calm authority. From an alleyway, the faint, rhythmic sound of a cobbler at work drifts into the street. You glance inside to see a man bent over a wooden bench, repairing the sole of a boot. Leather scraps litter the floor, and small tools hang neatly from pegs along the wall. The smell of leather and polish fills the narrow space. Toward the river, the sounds change. The shouts of dock workers carry across the water, mingling with the heavy splash of crates being lowered into the holds of ships. Men in rough coats and caps haul ropes and barrels, their boots slick with river mud. The air is sharp with the smell of salt and damp wood, mixed with the faint odor of coal smoke drifting from the steamships. A fishmonger stands at the edge of the quay, arranging his catch on a bed of crushed ice. Silver-scaled herring, thick cod, and long eels gleam under the pale light. He calls to passers-by, offering the day's freshest haul at prices meant to move quickly before the sun climbs too high. Here, work is constant. The streets never truly fall silent, and the rhythm of London's labor carries on from dawn until long after dusk. On a quieter side street, you notice a small photography studio with tall windows and a painted sign that reads Daguerreotype Portraits. Inside, the light is carefully arranged to fall across a plain backdrop and a wooden chair. A photographer in a waistcoat adjusts a heavy brass camera mounted on a sturdy tripod. He speaks softly to his subject, a well-dressed woman seated perfectly still, reminding her to hold the pose for several seconds while the image is captured. The faint smell of developing chemicals hangs in the air, sharp but strangely clean. A few doors down, a second-hand bookshop beckons with its weathered display table outside. Stacks of leather-bound volumes lean against one another, their spines faded, but their titles still legible. Inside, the shop is dim and quiet, the only sound the occasional rustle of pages as a customer browses. The air is thick with a scent of old paper and ink, a fragrance that seems to slow time itself. As you round the next corner, the mood shifts. A street performer has gathered a small crowd. He plays a fiddle with surprising skill, his bow dancing across the strings in quick, bright notes. A battered hat rests on the cobblestones before him, already holding a scattering of coins. Children stand nearest, clapping along while adults watch from a polite distance, smiling faintly before moving on. Not everyone in the city has steady work or a secure place to sleep. In a narrow alley, you pass a man wrapped in a worn coat, seated against a wall with his cap in his hands. His gaze is distant, his voice quiet as he asks for spare change. People pass by quickly, some offering a coin, others pretending not to see. Further along, a woman carries a large basket of laundry balanced on her hip. She moves with surprising speed, the white linen sheets within still damp from washing. The scent of soap trails behind her as she heads toward one of the public drying grounds where rows of clothes flap in the breeze. These glimpses, a moment in a shop, a tune on the street, a life lived in shadow, reveal the full range of London's daily existence. It is a city of industry and artistry, of wealth and poverty, of quiet persistence woven into every corner. As the day moves toward afternoon, the rhythm of work shifts. The sharp energy of morning labor softens into a steady flow, and the streets begin to fill with those taking a brief pause between tasks. At a busy market square, stalls overflow with goods. Baskets of vegetables sit beside crates of imported spices, their earthy scent mingling with the sharper aroma of dried herbs. A butcher's counter displays neat rows of cuts, each one carefully wrapped in paper for the next customer. Merchants call out prices, their voices rising above the hum of the crowd. In the corner of the square, a coffee house draws a mix of patrons, merchants, clerks, and a few gentlemen in fine coats. Through the large windows, you see men seated at small tables, leaning forward in animated conversation. The air inside is thick with the smell of roasted beans and pipe smoke, a combination both rich and slightly bitter. Waiters in dark waistcoats move quickly between tables, carrying porcelain cups on small silver trays. Down a narrower lane, you find a workshop where fine furniture is being crafted. The scent of freshly cut wood fills the space, and curls of shavings cover the floor like pale ribbons. A craftsman bends over a half-finished chair, his hands moving with slow precision as he carves an intricate design into the backrest. The steady scrape of his tools is the only sound in the room, broken occasionally by the soft thud of a mallet. Nearby, a small confectioner's shop tempts passers-by with trays of boiled sweets and sugar-dusted biscuits. Through the glass, you see jars filled with colorful candies, bright reds, deep greens, pale yellows, catching the sunlight. Children press their noses to the window, pointing eagerly before being ushered inside by smiling parents. As the afternoon fades, the city seems to take a deep breath. Shop shutters are lowered, tools are put away, and carts begin their slow journey home. Yet in other corners, the work continues. Bakers preparing dough for the morning, lamplighters making their rounds, and printers working late into the night to set the next day's headlines. By the time the first lamps are lit along the street, the city is ready to transform once again, shifting from the labor of the day to the quieter, more shadowed life of the evening. As the afternoon slips quietly into evening, the light over London begins to change. The pale blue of the sky deepens into shades of gold and rose, then slowly fades to a muted gray. Shadows stretch longer across the cobblestones, and the air cools with a damp touch that hints at the coming night. You watch as lamplighters begin their work. Carrying long poles tipped with a small flame, they move from lamp to lamp, coaxing each one to life with a brief, bright flicker. The glow is soft at first, a warm halo against the growing darkness, but as more lamps are lit, the streets begin to shimmer with points of steady light. Shops along the main streets remain open a little longer, their windows glowing warmly. The smell of roasted chestnuts drifts from a vendor's cart, mingling with the faint, sweet scent of toffee from a nearby confectioner. Children tug at their parents' hands, eager for one last treat before heading home. In the heart of the city, the theaters are coming alive. Carriages pull up before grand entrances, their doors opening to reveal ladies in satin gowns and men in black evening coats. Gaslights illuminate carved stone facades, casting dramatic shadows on the crowds gathering at the doors. Inside, the muffled sounds of an orchestra tuning up filter out into the street, a brief, chaotic symphony that promises music to come. The public houses and taverns begin to fill. Through open doors, you can see men gathered at polished wooden bars, mugs of ale in hand. The air inside is heavy with the scent of beer, tobacco smoke, and damp wool coats. Laughter and the low hum of conversation spill out onto the pavement, blending with the clip-clop of horses passing by. The city has not slowed. It has simply shifted its rhythm. Where the day was defined by work and trade, the night is marked by leisure, performance, and quiet indulgence. In the wealthier districts, elegant dining rooms glow with the light of chandeliers. Behind tall windows, long tables are set with gleaming silverware and fine china. Servants move quietly between courses, pouring wine and clearing plates with practiced ease. The conversation at these dinners is measured, the laughter soft, a kind of performance in itself, where wit is as important as the food being served. Elsewhere, in the narrow lanes and quieter corners, the atmosphere is different. Here, the gas lamps cast smaller pools of light, leaving wide stretches of street in deep shadow. Figures move quickly along the edges, some with their collars turned up against the chill, others lingering in doorways. The smell of damp brick and coal smoke is stronger here, mingled with the faint sourness of refuse left for the morning's collection. Down one such lane, a small cafe remains open late, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. Students, writers, and tradesmen gather at the worn wooden tables, speaking in low voices over cups of thick, dark coffee. Some read newspapers by the lamplight, while others scratch notes into small leather-bound books, pausing to glance at the street outside. Near the river, the night takes on a different sound. The water laps against the wooden piling of the docks, and the occasional creak of a moored ship cuts through the stillness. Dock workers finish their shifts under the dim glow of lanterns, voices echoing across the open water as they secure ropes and load the last of the evening cargo. The city is no less alive than it was in daylight, but its energy has shifted, slower in some places, more urgent in others. The bustle of a day has been replaced by the quiet pulse of 1,000 smaller scenes, each one unfolding behind closed doors under lamplight or in the hush of the river's edge. In the working-class districts, the music halls are alive with noise and laughter. Bright posters outside promise an evening of comedy, song, and novelty acts. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of spilled ale and pipe smoke, and the stage glows under rows of gaslights. Performers sing lively tunes, their voices rising above the chatter of the crowd, while waiters weave between tables carrying foaming mugs. On the streets just beyond, the night has its own kind of music. An old man plays a concertina near the entrance to a public house, his hat on the ground before him to catch coins. A pair of young boys dance clumsily to the tune, their laughter carrying down the lane. Every so often, the music falters as the musician pauses to cough, then resumes with renewed energy. Patrolling these streets are the night constables. Their dark blue coats are buttoned tight against the chill, and their heavy boots echo on the cobblestones. They carry rattles to signal trouble and small bullseye lanterns to cut through the dark. From time to time, they stop to speak with a shopkeeper locking up or to disperse a group lingering too long in a shadowed corner. Closer to the riverfront, the atmosphere turns more unpredictable. Dockside taverns stay open deep into the night, filled with sailors, laborers, and the occasional stranger with a story to tell. Arguments flare and fade quickly, the sharp sound of raised voices replaced by bursts of coarse laughter. In the distance, the deep toll of a church bell marks the passing of the hour, its sound swallowed quickly by the damp air. The city's layers are more visible at night. The lighted windows of grand houses stand only a short walk from alleys where a single lamp struggles to push back the darkness. Between them lies a London that is both glamorous and dangerous, a city of opportunity and risk in equal measure. As the night deepens, the energy of the city begins to thin. The streets that only an hour ago hummed with noise now lie quiet, their cobblestones glistening faintly under the gas lamps. A fine mist creeps in from the Thames, softening the edges of buildings and muffling the sound of footsteps. The last of the lamplighters make their rounds, checking each post before heading home. A milk cart rattles slowly through the emptier lanes, its driver bundled against the chill, delivering to households before dawn. Farther away, in the grand houses, the final carriage of the evening rolls up to a set of tall doors, its passengers stepping inside with a rustle of silk and the muted thud of the door closing. In the tenement districts, windows are shuttered tight against the cold. Only a faint flicker of candlelight shows through here and there, marking where someone works late or keeps watch over a restless child. A dog barks once in the distance, then falls silent. Along the riverbank, the last ferrymen tie off their boats, lanterns swinging from their hands. The water glints in the low light, black and silver under the moon. Somewhere upriver, a steam whistle sounds, long and low, before faded into the fog. London is never entirely still. But in these late hours, the city holds its breath. The clamor of the day and the revelry of the evening have passed, leaving only the steady heartbeat of a metropolis waiting for the first light of morning. Beyond the well-lit boulevards and grand facades, London has another face, one of narrow alleys, crumbling brickwork, and stories that rarely find their way into polite conversation. In the early hours of the morning, when the streets are almost empty, You might see a small group of children huddled together in a doorway for warmth. Their clothes are worn thin, and their shoes, if they have any, are patched with scraps of leather or cloth. They speak in quick whispers, sharing pieces of bread or cold potatoes scavenged from the previous day. Some sell matches or flowers during the day, weaving through the crowds until their voices are hoarse. Others run errands for shopkeepers, earning just enough to buy a crust of bread before nightfall. In the tenement buildings, life is crowded and airless. Families of 6 or more often share a single room, their possessions stacked in corners or hung from nails in the wall. A single stove might serve for both cooking and warmth, its thin smoke struggling up through a rusted chimney. The smell inside is a mix of damp wool, stale bread, and coal dust. Illness spreads easily here. A cough that starts in one household can pass through an entire building within days. Doctors are expensive, and hospitals are far away. For many, home remedies, herbal infusions, mustard poultices, vinegar rinses are the only care they will ever know. Some of the city's unseen lives unfold behind locked gates. The debtors' prisons still hold men and women whose only crime is owing more than they can pay. From behind the iron bars, they watch the world pass by, relying on family or charity to bring them food. A few work inside the prison itself, sewing or making small goods to sell. Yet even in these shadowed places, there is a stubborn thread of resilience. A child might find joy in a scrap of ribbon tied to her hair. A man might hum a tune while mending a broken chair. In their own quiet ways, they keep the rhythm of life moving forward. The hospitals of Victorian London are places of both hope and dread. From the outside, their tall brick walls seem imposing, their windows glowing faintly in the night. Inside, the smell of carbolic acid lingers in the air, sharp and biting, a recent innovation meant to fight infection. Rows of iron-frame beds fill the wards, each holding a patient wrapped in thin blankets. The nurses, many trained under the new standards set by Florence Nightingale, move quickly but speak softly, their voices a rare comfort in an otherwise grim space. In the poorer districts, charity shelters offer a bed for the night, though not much more. Long lines form outside their doors as the sun sets, men and women clutching small bundles of belongings. Inside, the floor is bare, the air cold, and the beds are nothing more than wooden frames with thin mattresses. Still, for those with nowhere else to go, it is a reprieve from the damp streets. There are workers whose lives unfold almost entirely at night. Night soil men, responsible for emptying the cesspits and privies, make their rounds while the city sleeps, hauling barrels of waste to the outskirts for disposal. Their work is foul-smelling and dangerous, but essential for the health of the city. Then there are the river porters, unloading goods from ships that arrive under cover of darkness. They carry crates of tea from India, bales of cotton from America, and barrels of rum from the Caribbean. The creak of ropes and the splash of water are their soundtrack, and the cold mist of the Thames is their constant companion. Even among these unseen workers, there is a strange sense of pride. They know the city depends on them, even if the people in the bright, busy streets never learn their names. Near a public washhouse in the East End, a young woman named Eliza works long hours tending to steaming vats of water. Her hands are red and rough from lye soap, her sleeves constantly damp. For a few pennies, she washes and presses shirts for shop clerks, dock workers, and occasionally the better-off families in nearby streets. She dreams of one day owning her own little laundry, with a proper press and a sign above the door. But for now, she works in the steady haze of steam, the smell of soap clinging to her skin. Not far away, a night watchman named Mr. Calloway makes his rounds along the quiet streets near the warehouses. He carries a heavy brass lantern that swings slightly with each step, casting small pools of light on the cobblestones. His job is to check that the doors are locked, the shutters secured, and no suspicious figures linger in the shadows. Sometimes he hums to himself to break the silence. Other times he pauses to listen, alert to the faintest sound out of place. In a small tavern by the docks, a widow named Margaret works behind the counter. Her hair is pinned neatly back, and her eyes are quick to spot trouble before it starts. She serves tankards of ale to sailors and dock hands, slipping a kind word or a bit of news to those she knows well. Her wages are modest, but the tips, a few extra coins from a grateful customer, help her keep her 2 children in school. Late at night, after the last patron has gone, she sweeps the floor, wipes down the tables, and bolts the door before walking home under the pale light of the gas lamps. These lives are not written about in newspapers or recorded in ledgers, yet they form the quiet foundation of the city. Without people like Eliza, Mr. Calloway, and Margaret, London would be a very different place. As you walk through these hidden corners of the city, you begin to understand that London's heartbeat is not found only in its grand avenues or its bustling markets. It pulses just as strongly in these quieter, often overlooked places. In the dim light of a wash house, the slow swing of a lantern on a lonely street, the warm clink of a mug on a tavern counter. These are the people who rise before the sun, who labor while others sleep, who hold the fragile threads of daily life together without fanfare or recognition. They work in rooms too small to catch the eye of a passerby, in alleys that never see the glow of a theater lamp, in spaces where the air is thick with the smell of labor and survival. Some will live their entire lives without ever crossing into the grander parts of London, yet their work, unacknowledged though it may be, flows through every street and every home, shaping the city in ways that cannot be measured. Standing there, listening to the faint sounds of night, you realize that these hidden stories are not simply background to the history of London. They are its foundation, the living, breathing fabric from which the rest of the city is woven. The day in Victorian London draws to a close, and the city begins its slow exhale. The gas lamps burn steadily now, their warm halos marking the paths through winding streets. The mist that rose from the Thames earlier has thickened, softening every edge, blurring the outlines of buildings until they seem half-dreamed. You walk slowly, the rhythm of your steps matching the city's quieter pace. The echoes of the day, the cries of market sellers, the ring of a blacksmith's hammer, the laughter from a music hall, now live only in memory, replaced by the muffled creak of a cart and the occasional bark of a dog. Passing the grand houses, you glimpse their life from the outside, tall windows aglow, silhouettes moving behind heavy curtains. A servant draws the drapes, shutting the world away, while inside the polished silver and fine china catch the flicker of candlelight. Farther on, the working-class districts lie mostly in shadow. A few doors stand ajar, revealing families gathered around small fires, their voices low, the heat carefully guarded. Children, weary from the day, rest against their mothers, eyes half closed as bedtime stories are told in hushed tones. Above it all, the night sky is a muted tapestry, its stars faint behind the veil of coal, smoke, and mist. The moon hangs low, pale and watchful, as if marking the quiet shift from one day to the next. As you stand in the stillness, you begin to see the city not as a collection of streets and buildings, but as a living, breathing organism. Every sound, every light, every shadow belongs to the rhythm of its heartbeat. The grandeur of the theaters, the humble wash houses, the crowded markets, the silent riverbanks, all of them are threads in the same vast tapestry. You think of the people you've crossed paths with in this single day. The lamplighter, patient in his rounds. The baker, pulling warm loaves from the oven before the sun had fully risen. The dock worker, his hands red from the cold as he tied down heavy ropes. The widow in the tavern, sweeping the floor long after midnight. And the countless others whose names you'll never know, yet whose presence shapes this city in unseen ways. The air carries the faint scent of coal and damp stone, but beneath it there's something else. A subtle warmth, the residue of thousands of human lives intersecting in a single place. It's a reminder that history is not only in the events recorded in books. It lives here in these streets, in the small moments and quiet labors of each day. London in 1860 is a city of contrasts, of wealth and hardship, of brilliance and shadow, of beginnings and endings, and in this moment, standing between the fading day and the deep night, you feel yourself part of it all, if only for a fleeting heartbeat. You turn toward your lodging, the sound of your own footsteps, the only constant in the sleeping streets. The city lies around you like a great, slumbering giant, its breath the whisper of the Thames, its dreams flickering in the dim glow of the gas lamps. At the threshold, you pause for one last look. Somewhere far away, a carriage wheel rattles briefly over cobblestones, then fades into silence. A thin curl of smoke rises from a distant chimney, catching the moonlight before disappearing into the night. You step inside, closing the door gently behind you. The faint warmth of the hearth wraps around you, carrying with it the scent of ash and wood. The world beyond your walls will continue its slow turning until the first light touches the rooftops, calling the city to life once more. As you lay down, your mind drifts back over the day, the market cries, the laughter in the music halls, the quiet determination in the faces of those who work unseen. It is a city full of noise and silence, of grandeur and grit, of fleeting moments and enduring truths. London in 1860 is not merely a place in time. It is an experience, rich and layered, alive with the voices of the past. And though morning will come soon enough, for now the city sleeps, and you with it.